I'm happy to give you this presentation today. It will be on the transition system, experiencing the transition system, Übergangssystem in Germany. And I would like to raise the question, practices of exclusion in education. To me, this is really a question, and I don't have a finished, clear answer to that, because some of the things that I would like to present today, or most of the things, are work in progress. And yeah, this is why I'm also looking forward to our discussion. And what I will present, this is work that I conducted together with Samuel Mössner, who is now in Münster. He used to work with me in Freiburg, and this is why I want to put his name on the presentation as well, and also on the publication, of course. My background is in human geography. I think I do not need to go into detail. Geographies of education, the nexus between education and society from a geographical perspective, and also this is framed from a broader social constructivist approach. And I'm interested in the social production of spaces, discursively, symbolically, physically, practically, somehow. The aim of my paper is to sketch out Übergangssystem, and I would like to present students' perspectives on experiencing educational settings in the transition system, and all this is based on semi-structured interviews that we conducted, and I have a lot of raw material from the interview transcript to present that I would like to present. The focus will be on students in Übergangssystem struggling with barriers on the one side, and on the other side on possible support and resources to help them within the Übergangssystem. I would like to discuss practices of exclusion, if there are, and raise questions of educational justice in a broader context with regard to these socio-environmental settings for education and learning inside the institutions and well beyond. So first, what is this transition system, which is really not very well known out of Germany and neither very well known inside Germany, although it is really important. Übergangssystem constitutes one specific sector of public education in Germany. Being part of the welfare system, the national welfare system, the transition system involves a set of strategies and instruments that are implemented to support young people who left secondary school either without a degree or with a degree, and who are somehow in between. So it is meant for young people who finished secondary school without a degree, with a degree, but who are not qualified for higher education studies, who did not find a job, who did not find an apprenticeship, and who are somehow in between. They would be jobless if there was not Übergangssystem. Okay, so it is a kind of transition that they are in. And it is not just one institution, the Übergangssystem, but it is a bundle of strategies and measures. You see them down there. And this is all in German because I find it really hard to translate these specific strategies into English. They are all basically meant during 1 year or a longer period, preparing them for the young people for a job, but it is not related to a formal qualification or degree. It is rather preparational vocational training, and these are different types, and they can, if we go down to a city level, it can be several institutions offering some of these strategies or instruments that are meant to be designed especially for those younger people who are really in difficulty, because from the first sight they cannot enter like the subsequent educational or professional step into the labor market. And the transition system was designed for young people who encounter difficulties when trying to enter the labor market, to start an apprenticeship or to pursue their educational career. Now, when it comes to numbers, if we look at young people who left school in Germany in 2016 and who started well, different types of follow-up activities. You see that basically 1/3 of them goes to into higher education, the yellow segment. This is 1/3 of all the young people who left secondary school. And then we have the dual education system, which means that half of your time, half of the time they spend in a company or public administration getting trained, vocational training, and half of the time, or the other part of the time, they are at school, at a vocational school to get trained, and usually after 3 years they will get a diploma, which is a professional qualification. This is somehow the second third of the school leavers. And then we have vocational schools, which are schools that, well, give to some extent training for a job, but they do not include the job in practice in the company or so. And the transition system in green is somehow the rest. And cynically, we could say it is for the people for whom there is basically no offer. And the no-offer situation is called Übergangssystem. So they are somehow in between. And when it comes to numbers, it is 20%. So 1 out of 5 is in Übergangssystem. And I think it's striking that so many of my German colleagues do not have a clear idea about Übergangssystem. I mean, it's highly relevant if it is 1 out of 5. And probably these 1 out of 5 are those who need the most support to find somehow their place within society, within the labor market, or wherever. So it's important to focus on them, and this was my motivation to carry out research, to conduct these interviews, and also to give this presentation. If we look back over the past 10 years, we can see that, in 2005, it has been more people, young people in Übergangssystem, in absolute numbers, but also in percentages. But over the past 5 or 6 years, it has remained rather stable. And so there are people coming into that Übergangssystem. Some find their way out, some remain within the Übergangssystem, and the way out can also be a way into being jobless, of course. So this is really somehow the too much that we have of school leavers. And who are these people in the Übergangssystem? They are primarily male students. They have a low socioeconomic status, at least those are overrepresented. And we have many students without German citizenship, particularly from Asian and African countries. And there we should have a closer look at, it is a generalization, but this is what we can get from the National Education Report at least. And all these groups are highly overrepresented in Übergangssystem. And my guiding question would be, how does the transition system matches with the expectations of these students, and how does it serve their needs, the students' needs? And in order to learn more about Übergangssystem, and I can say myself, I was not really very much aware of the dimension and importance of the Übergangssystem. That was my motivation to conduct a small empirical study in Freiburg, and that was just after I got the position in Freiburg, and together with Samuel Mössner we conducted a series of interviews. The aim was to identify students' lived experiences. We want to better understand how the students experience this situation in the setting of Übergangssystem, and we wanted to unveil relevant mechanisms and practices of social exclusion. Drawing upon our qualitative analysis, we want in this paper to illustrate how key persons and relevant structures being located either in the school environment or out of school may support and motivate or on the other hand, hinder and discourage the students. And we conclude with a broader discussion of existing practices of exclusion and raise questions of educational justice with regard to the socio-environmental settings. In all, we conducted 24 interviews. That was in 2010 with students involved in various classes and courses of the transition system. And this empirical data, I revisited it in order to prepare this presentation today. We focus on A, struggling with barriers, and B, support and resources. And all this will be differentiated between young men and young women and those who are with or without a migration background, so some kind of migration history over the past 2 generations. First, I will show you some of the interviews concerning struggling with barriers. And I will see if I have enough time to read through several. It's hard for me to not to share the interviews with you. I already excluded many, but there are many left. Interviewer: where did you encounter your biggest difficulties? The student: I don't know. Maybe because I had to change too often. I had to change schools so often. I was hit there by foreigners because I was German. Like the school is almost entirely made up of foreigners. We were the only 2 Germans in our class, and we were constantly bullied. Different persons, one question, yeah. And I somehow condensed some of the materials. How was your time in this preparational vocational training? Many classmates there were not kind towards me, wasn't any fun. That's why I couldn't concentrate that well. I was preoccupied. For example, they tease me about which country I come from. I'm from Russia, so I'm an immigrant, and this is what he said. So this is not the translation from German into English. It's not just due to my limited English. It is really that we recorded these interviews in some kind of a variety of German that represents the way they talk to us in the interviews, and I tried as good as possible to somehow to translate this and to give it the same flavor in English. For example, they tease me about that country where I'm from. I'm from Russia, so I'm an immigrant. However, that's something they all didn't understand. All of them were young and, let's say, just pretty dumb. Student: I managed to pull through 1 year. Well, one can compare it to 8th grade Realschule or something like that, secondary school. So did you feel insufficiently challenged? Yeah, that definitely wasn't anything for me. The situation with the classroom was utter chaos. Many never showed up, or on the schoolyard they'd smoke something else. Then some would show up with alcohol and drink. It was totally crass. The teachers were already under stress because some students already had been annoying. On some days, we'd just be 2 instead of 16 in class. Yeah, and due to my German, I didn't make the cut for Berufskolleg Business College. Sometimes I simply do have some problems with my German. For example, when they discuss economics, there are some things I just don't understand. That means I'm slower than the others, and then I have to ask again. I've been in Germany for 6 years. Immediately went to a Hauptschule. It is simply very difficult to learn German because I wasn't in a school where I had taken a German course, and I was just very shy at that time. I couldn't really express myself because my German wasn't so good. And then asking what the student would do, could have done differently. Well, I would study more in secondary modern school. I would make more of an effort because back then, I don't know, when everyone doesn't feel like it, then you also say, I don't feel like it. And then I came into elementary school. In 1st grade, my parents got divorced, and then I couldn't learn anymore and stuff. And then I had to repeat the 1st grade. Then I went on until 4th grade and had my recommendation for secondary school. My stepfather, and this is the separation into these 3 tracks, my stepfather kept beating us, me and my sister too. He did, however, get reported to police, and there again, I didn't learn anymore and started cutting myself. And my teachers also saw that, and then they said, but they expressed themselves differently, but in essence, they meant that they didn't need this behavior in our school or in their school. I negatively perceived that these are such big classes. In 7th and 8th grades, we were 34 of those 23 were girls, which means there was a lot of bitch fighting. Everyone there took it out on everyone else. It was dreadful. My parents had decided that I'd go to Realschule because I was so shy after all. And in a high school, one has to be able to work independently and blah. Yeah, I was pretty shy back then. And when there's so many peeps in the class, then these persons simply disappear into the crowd. So, like summing up these barriers, that from the perspective of the students, we have a few general reasons for struggling with the barriers. It is difficult when the students change schools or localities, when they have a problematic family situation. Then if students are confronted with early disappointments and setbacks, partially already in elementary school, somehow if they feel that the elementary school is not the place where they are welcome, where they feel good, then this can have drastic consequences on their educational career. Insufficient support after school in the afternoon is a key reason why they are confronted with difficulties, and then they blame the 3-pronged school system in Germany. Moreover, ethnically motivated negative discriminatory practices in the classroom and outside, hostile views towards learning within the circle of friends. If the friends regard learning as something not cool, they don't, yeah. But so if it's not appropriate to learn, then it's difficult to find a reason why to learn, in fact. And then some group-specific findings. Young people with migration background state that they have a lack of language skills, particularly young men with migration background. They talk about violence within the class, psychological problems, trauma. Young women with migration background tell about their responsibilities within the family, lack of personal contact towards teachers. Young women without migration background then, they blame the aggressive classroom atmosphere characterized by bullying behavior, psychological problems, reading and spelling disabilities, and the class size which goes over 30. So all in all, you see that those kids or young people interviewed, they do not like going to school and they do not like Übergangssystem. They don't, many of them even don't know why they are there. And at the same time, we get the feeling that they are somehow reflexive of what is happening. So they are well aware of their situation, and they feel that school is not their place to be. Support structures or support and resources, somehow the other way around. Well, I came with my parents in 2004 in Germany. I immediately went to Hauptschule. Well, it was very hard to learn German because I was, no school where I had made a course, a German class. I immediately went into Hauptschule. So, did you have any support in language acquisition? Just a bit in German class. Always took me outside, and a little bit of grammar, nothing special, just a bit. I once heard that in Kepler High School they give foreigners, when they come to Germany, like school and such, but my parents didn't know that. They immediately registered me in Hauptschule. What exactly would help you to reach your goal of becoming a trained retail salesman? I made a deal with my teachers and also with my mom. whenever I come late in the morning or something like that, come late to school, then I also said the teachers, like they can immediately call my mom if I'm late. So that means structure is something that helps you. It helps you when people say this and this must happen. Yeah, no, like it doesn't really help, but it's worth a shot. What would you say is something you're really good at? Oh geez, I don't know. How much have your parents supported you, or were they able to support you? No, they also couldn't support me because they weren't born here or anything. They don't even really speak the language at home. It's completely another language, and outside it's German, as if one lived in two worlds. But I simply looked out that the Hauptschullehrerin, the teacher, so my homeroom teacher, sort of discovered some potential that was good. The teachers helped me a lot. They like understood that some grades weren't just because I'm dumb, but because I just couldn't keep up, because I didn't know the language that well. Had the teachers not supported me that much during the time when I had those language problems, or if they hadn't seen that they think I'm capable, that they want to support me, then I probably would have quit at some point. The student then, after successfully completing Hauptschule, I didn't find an apprenticeship, and then I went into this one-year training, vocational training. And then I also went to the employment agency, Arbeitsamt, and I'll never forget the clerk goes, "You are currently doing this vocational year? That's usually something for special needs kids." And then I was really so shocked that I said, "This won't work. I want to prove it. I'll show you as well that I'll also manage it without you." So general findings from the support and resources side. All over the interviews, we find that they are aware that there are numerous institutionalized support office, but the existing office apparently do not reach all persons. Sometimes they get informed too late, or they cannot connect to this office. And the individual teachers often play a key role. It is the teacher that, like 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 gets one student and really is able to motivate the student. Young people with migration background then, the parents cannot support due to missing language competence. None of the students, and this is remarkable somehow, lists being bilingual is a resource. We have language training and like talking with teachers. Bilingual children they have advantages, structural advantages. This is often stated, but not for every language and not for every background. So none of these students, of whom many are bilingual, they have a migration background, they don't see this as a resource, rather as a handicap. And we see that it is very important for them, it is crucial for success to have willpower and determination, not to get discouraged, but rather if they are confronted with discrimination or with people who do not feel that they are capable, then just to react and to prove that they can achieve goals. So for discussion and outlook, we can see that these interview citations portray how the students perceive, experience and evaluate settings for education and learning in the transition system. And for us in the conducting the interviews, that was really striking. And this is really opposed to what we can read in brochures, what we can listen from politicians, educators, principals of the school. It is basically a different world, and it's hard to bring those two perspectives or those different perspectives together. The unfiltered, raw language of the students underlines important barriers and deficiencies in the transition system. The students feel obviously disadvantaged, excluded, and sometimes not understood or not compatible with the educational system. And I'm sure that many students feel excluded, they feel exclusion, but I'm still hesitating to to conclude that we have practices of exclusion, because it depends somehow on points of views. It is somehow a mismatch, and we can, if we take the student perspective and say this is the perspective that we take, then we can talk about, or they can name it exclusion. If we take the teacher's perspective, that would probably be different, and I would say that we have a situation where students feel exclusion, and this should be enough to react on that, to work on that. And this is the point where I was thinking about your presentation yesterday, Edward, for example. This is very much like how the civil society helps students who are obviously in difficulties. This is somehow missing in here. Somebody who takes care of the students, of the children, the children's goods, as Helen named it, and yeah, obviously this does not work in this context. Then from the interviews and the interview analysis, we can better understand how settings for education and learning are constituted and co-produced by teachers, students, and other actors. We've seen that many of the barriers are in fact not located in the classroom but outside the classroom, and it is beyond the institution. Nevertheless, there are remaining barriers also in the classroom, and for the students it's all the same, because they do not separate within their minds the inside and outside school environment. It's their life, basically. Yeah, and these settings are, well, co-produced by these different actors. The teachers play a key role, but there are also other actors involved. And yeah, we can see that these educational settings, or the outside, what is happening outside the classroom, can have an enormous impact on educational participation and success. I think, or what I would like to do next somehow, would be to do interviews with teachers and with other persons involved in order to illustrate the teacher's perspective. What we did so far was a presentation of our findings to the school principals, to some of the parents and other experts involved, and like some of the experts, especially coming from the social worker perspective, they completely agreed to our presentation. They say this is nothing new. Whereas from the teacher side and from the officials in the school, they would say this is all wrong, the students didn't understand anything. And I think this is striking, that there's such a discrepancy between many social workers who are with the students in the afternoon or at night, and the teachers who somehow from their home come to that school and probably do not, in the most of the cases, at least what we've seen in this presentation and discussion, do not live in the neighborhood. They come from the outside, and they are not aware of the situation, or most of them are not aware of the situation of the students. And I think it would be important to work out how basically that they have so incompatible perspectives, and if we talk about improving the educational settings, we would need somehow to identify different perspectives, then bring in touch the people. And then I would like to relate to what Susanne Hoffmann showed us in her presentation yesterday, like the participatory approach, the family group constructing or rearranging learning environments, setting up a school also. And I think it would be important to empower these young children and to give them the opportunity to design the school, the environmental setting, and also the agenda, what they would like to learn. And this is all for today. Thank you very much.